Anyway, I'm Jason.
Hey, Jason.
Hi.
This is Jason. I'm AJ. Thanks for being with us today, Billy. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. My father, basically our topic tonight?
Well, that's going to be kind of the second half of we got probably about 10 or 11 questions for you if you're cool with that. You feel free to talk for as long as you want about anything. And I'll be honest, probably the first 5 questions are all about you and your career. So we wanted to focus on you a little bit, and then because it's going to be kind of our Father's Day segment, we wanted to get in and talk about your father a little bit, if that's cool. So,
Very cool.
All right, cool.
Hey, question.
Yeah.
Y'all are looking at me. Should I lose the Babe Ruth picture behind my head?
No, I was going to ask you, should we lose the Al Kaline poster behind our head?
No, it's got a kind of glare to it, but he played for Dad in 72 Tigers.
Yeah, I was hoping to ask you a question about that. If you had any recollect, or if he talked about his years with the Tigers or anything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was there. I mean, I was a little guy. Kind of funny, speaking of Father's Day, a friend of mine, Merle Harmon's grandson, sent me footage recently of a Tigers game. It was the game of the week, which was a big deal back in the 70s.
Yeah.
There was literally the only other game you could see other than your home team was the game of the week. And I was interviewed on it. My mother and I were interviewed, and I think I was 7 years old, so it's kind of funny. I'd never seen it. Didn't even know it happened back then. So
feel free to share that story if you'd like. I mean, that'd be awesome. That's pretty cool.
No, yeah, it's. I mean, I said it to my kids. They couldn't believe it. I mean, it was. But I'd never seen it. You'd think back then that was such a big deal. You think I might have actually had someone say, "Hey, saw you on that," but I don't know. I was 7. I cared more about playing wiffle ball, probably.
Probably, yeah.
So
where are you guys at? Where are you located?
We're located in Midland, Michigan, home of Dow Chemical. Yeah, kind of as a Michigander, kind of right here in the Great Lakes Bay region. Every goofy Michigander does that. So, if you were here for any amount of time, I'm sure you remember that stuff too. So,
we weren't there long, but I still have friends. I still have some good friends from there, and actually one of them moved here in the Texas area with me. But so I get to see and hang out with all my old Michigander friends. So
well, that's good.
Seems like we get a lot of guests from Texas. It's kind of nice,
Well, there's some kind of groovy Texas-Michigan crossover. I mean, even musically, and I got to meet great Ted Nugent. Ted and my father hunted together in a celebrity quail hunt in Hawaii.
Wow.
And then I had him on a television show I produced right out of college. And he's obviously the Motor City Madman. But there's a famous country musician who even in one of his songs says, "I'm from Dallas, Texas." But he's not. He's from Michigan. And it's great David Allan Coe.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, for sure. He was amazing. Well, let's get into talking about you a little bit, okay, Billy?
Absolutely.
All right. So, how did you decide to become an agent, and how did that start?
Well, actually, that was my father's idea. I don't know if it was my below average arm or my below average power as a player, but I really think his foresight was that agents can be agents till they're 70 years old. And he also saw the way that salaries were starting to climb the ladder and thought it was a good idea. So I took that to heart.
Yeah. Now, do you only represent baseball players, or what do you? Everybody all across the gamut?
No, baseball is really all I focused on. I represented an Olympic athlete at one time because her father was a baseball coach, and I helped her get some endorsements. I helped a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader get some modeling gigs in New York, but I even represented an NFL player who went to camp but didn't make the team, but because he'd heard that all the football agents were dishonest, and he heard he could at least trust me. So
that's pretty cool. How many clients you got right now?
That fluctuates daily, but we pro agents we try to keep it under 50. There were just two main agents, myself and my partner Dave Pepe. We just recently added Tom Kohler, who was a former client of ours and is now an agent. He pitched 6 years in the major leagues, and it's really been a cool infusion because he's got a new, younger set of contacts. He's former major league pitcher that can kind of be our pitching performance guy to talk to all our pitchers, and so it's been neat. But when it was just Dave and I, we got up to like 80 clients at one time, and that's too many to do it like we like to do it. We like to give everybody time, and not just the guys that are good. And that's hard to do with 80 guys, to be there for them all and to give the kind of service we like to give. So that's probably what differentiates us from some of our larger competition.
Very good. Switching gears just a tad. You're named field manager and president of baseball operations for the Texas Air Hogs, which was a independent league team, and I think it was as 2017. That was co-owned by Dallas Mavericks president and of basketball operations, general manager Donnie Nelson. I was wondering how that relationship started and how you got that gig.
Well, we were both in the Sons of Famous Coaches Club.
Yeah, for sure.
And we actually met through a mutual friend. He brought me into that. He made me do it. He's a lot bigger than I am. And he actually was right. You know, he told me that I would learn so much more insight. And I'd coached at the high school level, but literally was dumb enough to think that I could go in 5 o'clock, make up a lineup, manage this team. And I didn't realize what a full-time job it is, how involved you get with every player's life, the trades, the things that are going on. I learned how much I didn't know about the game, and it was a great experience. And Donnie's a friend for life.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's awesome. I just wanted to follow up. What kind of manager were you? Were you anything like your dad on the field, or complete opposite, or?
I don't know. I don't know that everybody really even understands what kind of manager my father was. They all talk about the yelling and screaming and kicking dirt, and but what they don't really realize is what kind of psychologist he was. I watched him one day. The trainer had just gone through the whole list of players that were hurt on the Yankees. And one of them was Ricky Henderson. And Ricky had a hamstring issue going on. And the trainer told my father, I don't think you should play him. He's saying he wants to play, but I don't think you should play him. His hamstring's bad. We have an off day tomorrow, so if you give him today off, he gets 2 days off. After they'd gone through the team, Dad walks into the training room, and I went with him, and he puts his hand on his back. He talks to him, rubbing on his back a little bit. Hey, pal, trainer says I need to sit you tonight. So I'm thinking about doing that. Oh, no way, Skip, I'm your guy. Yes, you are my guy. And I need you all year. and we got an off day tomorrow. So if I rest you today, you get 2 days off. No way, Skip. I'm your guy. Just let me cruise. Just let me cruise. Are you sure? Promise. I'll be okay. Just let me cruise. Meaning, don't get mad if I pop up to the pitcher and I don't run all the way to second base, you know. Ricky went in. He got on base 3 times. He stole 3 bases that game, I believe, and cruised their way to victory. But the part for me that was so cool, and afterwards I said, Dad, I don't know that I'd ever seen you show that kind of love to a guy before. It was cool. And he said, pal, they're all different. And that's my job, to figure out how to push their buttons. Some of them need love. Some of them need a kick in the ass. And some of them I don't need to say a damn word to. And you know, you don't hear much about my father being a mental strategist like that with the guys, but I think even some of the guys that didn't love playing for him, if they looked back, they'd realize he did get the best out of him. Reggie Jackson hated playing for my father, he said, but look, they were some of the best years of his career. The guy in the poster behind you two, he says it wasn't fun playing for my father. Well, if you notice, that year was late in his career. My father rested him a lot that year. He didn't play him every day, and Al had never gone through that before. When they got to the postseason, who was in the lineup every day? Al Kaline. Had my father not rested him the way he did and babied him along the way, he might not have been there in the postseason when they needed it. Even though they didn't get to the World Series, that's all you could do. And it's not easy doing that gig. And I guess a long-term answer to your story is that's probably the best thing I learned my 1 year coming in second to last managing.
Absolutely. Now, we read that you went to Texas Tech and you played both baseball and soccer. How good of a baseball player were you?
I was a better soccer player. Depend. If my father was there to watch me play, I was outstanding. The Yankees offered me a contract to sign because he, of course, had them do that. I declined that contract. I knew I didn't deserve it, but my father thought I was much better than I really was because every time he laid eyes on me, I had my best day. You know, he came in one game my senior year in high school. I was 5 for 5 that day. Came about that far from hitting what would have been my only high school home run. I knew my coach wouldn't have the you-know-whats to yell at because my dad would have probably kicked his ass. So, I actually had an amazing fall for Texas Tech and looked like I was probably going to be the leadoff hitter. Maybe playing a couple positions, and hurt my shoulder, kind of lost my gig. Coach threw me right back in there when I came out, but I was a mess after sitting out for over a month. And I think why I liked soccer so much is that I wasn't Billy Martin Jr. when I played soccer, because those guys didn't care about baseball or any of that stuff, and I could let my hair grow long and put in my earring and just be another soccer dude and not have to worry about that stuff.
That's cool. Billy, I saw in an interview you did that you kind of had a pretty interesting take on the Astros sign stealing thing. Can you share your thoughts on that a little bit? Or a lot, if you want.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Everybody cheats. Everybody cheats and has cheated in this game since its inception. I hate to break it to you, but the Detroit Tigers have cheated before.
Never. Jason won't believe that. Jason's a purist.
They're not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
That's our problem then. Okay,
Yep.
got it.
My father literally had a quote that's on my son's wall in their room. It said, "Cheating's as big a part of baseball as hot dogs and Cracker Jacks." Let's go back in history. Bill Mazeroski's shot heard around the world. 1961, I believe, the home run to beat the Yankees in the World Series. The guys in the bullpen had a telescope. They had equipment piled all over it so you couldn't see it. So one guy was looking through it, while another guy would stand up and wave a towel. And he would wave a towel like he was stretching, and that would tell people what pitch was coming. That's been going on forever. One of the greatest plays in World Series history, Willie Mays' The Catch, where he makes the over-the-shoulder catch running towards center field.
In 54, right?
If you see that from a different camera angle, it shows there at the Polo Grounds that their left field was almost like the Green Monster. But there were offices midway up there. So there's this glass wall. Well, up against one of the pieces of glass, you see a man so close to the glass, he's like this far from it. You can see his shoes and his knees, his whole body up against the glass. He's got binoculars in his eyes. Well, rumor is he was stealing signs. But these rumors have been going on forever. Wrigley Field, when Buck Showalter designed the Diamondbacks ballpark, the camera wells were put where they could, look right into the other dugout. It's part of the game. It can be fixed. All we have to do is get rid of electronics, right? We don't need phones in the dugout. We don't need iPads or laptops in the dugout. When Abner Doubleday invented the game, none of that stuff was on his list. So get rid of that. That'll take care of it.
Nice. Yeah.
Good answer. I like that. Shifting gears, question about your father. First of all, do you have any memorabilia from him that he gave to you that you have?
Which year is that from?
1976 World Series ring.
Nice.
It has
awesome.
19 diamonds in it because at the time the Yankees had 19 championships. That was his first as a manager. I have that. I have his 1950 ring, which is his first as a player. Those are the only two rings I have. I do. I have lots of unique stuff, like pipes he used to smoke.
This is awesome.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I've got lots of old shirts he wore and boots and stuff like that. I don't have a lot of game use stuff. I have some old things that were his. And no, he did not smoke this pipe with Willie. But even though he and Willie Nelson were very good friends, and he did ask me about that one time, but
Watucky wants to know if he can buy one of those rings. He's in the market for one.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Where just out of curiosity, where's the rest of those rings?
All over the place. His sisters each got one. His widow has 77. I know. I don't know where 78 is. He never wore 78 because that was the year he was fired after 102 games, and they went on and won the World Series. But I was lucky I was here this day. I was 15 years old. And this was 1977 season opener in New York the home opener, and he took it off and goes, "Here you go, Pard. You can have the second place ring as today. I'll be donning the first place ring." And, luckily I was there, or the clubhouse guy might have gotten this ring that day. So
that's awesome. That's really cool. Sorry, it's my turn. Did your dad ever share any stories with you? I'm sure he shared stories with you about hanging with Mantle and Ford and Barra and Hank Bauer. I mean, those are some of his best friends. Yeah, I mean, you got any good ones that you haven't told anybody else yet?
Well, those guys, I mean, they had a different kind of closeness to today's player. And there are a lot of reasons for it. One reason is, think about this. When my father was playing for the world champion New York Yankees in his early days, he was literally making $10,000 a year. So think about that. $10,000 a year, and if they won the World Series, he got a check for $600-700. That's almost 70. Oh, crud.
Uh-oh. Camera
Sorry,
went out. That's okay. You're back.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, we can see you now.
We got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
70% of his check. That meant he could stay and sustain himself in New York and live there until spring training started. Otherwise, he would have to go back to California and work in the penicillin plant, sell cars, or both, to keep his head above water till he could go back and play for the Yankees in spring training. So that World Series ring was important. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
So if a guy didn't run out a ground ball, if a guy didn't dive for a play in the field, when they ran back to the dugout, Hall of Fame manager Casey Stengel didn't have to say a damn word. 6 players were up in the guy's face saying, "Hey, you're jacking with our World Series check. We need an effort." When the inmates run the asylum, it's a lot better game.
Wow, that's an amazing perspective there, Billy. I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, I mean, when I was a kid collecting and stuff, I always heard that like Nolan Ryan had to go back and work at the gas station and stuff during the off season, and to me that was completely over my head. I'm like, he's Nolan Ryan, he's making millions of dollars, right? And it wasn't always like that, and I think a lot of people don't remember that.
No, they don't. They look at today's salaries and they're like, wow, but it wasn't like that then. I mean, you think about this. The great Mickey Mantle made way more money signing autographs after his playing days were over than he ever did as a player.
Yeah.
I mean, the most he ever got paid was a third less than today's minimum wage for a baseball player.
That's insane.
It's unbelievable.
Right?
That's insane.
I wanted to shift to your dad managing the Tigers from 71 to 73. What can you share about those years? I know you said you were younger back then, but you remember a little bit about it.
Oh, absolutely. So that was his second major league job. We left Minnesota. As a kid, you don't want to leave anywhere. We left Minnesota. We moved to Denver, back to Minnesota, then to Detroit. And it was an old team. It was actually the oldest team in baseball at the time. But I loved it. I mean, I had a crush on Bill Freehand's daughter.
Anything happened with that?
Kelly Freehand. Actually, it was kind of cool. I got to run into her at a game here in Arlington, Texas. Her son was playing for Michigan State, and and she was at the game, and I was talking with a scout about the days in Michigan. Actually, and I said that, I used to have a crush on Bill Freehand's daughter. Really? Well, she's sitting right up there. Really? I went and said hi to her, but yeah, I love that team. It's funny. I was, you can Brakeman and Relio Rodriguez and Norm Cash, and there were so many.
This technology thing, right? It's cool. We'll be patient with you. You still there with us, Billy? Okay. We might have lost Bill for a second. We'll kind of wait, see what's going on. There's no picture here with Tucky. Looks like we got picture back, but you're sideways now. Can you hear us?
Yeah, guys, sorry. The iPad went out.
I hear
even
it.
had it on charger, so I don't know what's happened.
Hey, that happens sometimes. You are sideways, so it looks funny. Is there
Okay. See if I try to. I don't know. I don't know how to make my screen move other than my thumb.
There you go. You're good now. You're good. Perfect. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Usually once we get a technical fail like that, it's like, that's it. We're done for the night. So thanks for coming back.
Well,
that's cool. You look better than ever.
It's not my first rodeo, but I apologize.
You're good.
No worries.
I wanted to follow up with some of the players you named. Did you get to know any of them? I always hear that my dad always tells me that Norm Cash was kind of a jokester. Do you have any interaction with him at all?
I was so young that the jokes all probably went over my head. I mean, the joke was on me one day. I was bat boying, and so I'm probably 6 or 7, and Norm Cash, is it Norm or Freehand, hits a ball down the third baseline that I thought was fair. So I run out, grab the bat, and well, it was about that far foul. So I'm jogging back to the dugout. Well, he's jogging behind me, trying to grab his bat from me. and Tiger Stadium's packed. Everybody's laughing because the little dumbass 6-year-old bat boy doesn't know that it's a foul ball. And he finally catches me, right before I go down into the dugout, and I look up, and of course it's on the big screen, and everybody in there is laughing, and that's when I realized the whole ballpark's laughing at me. When you're a little guy, that's not very cool. So yeah, I was a little intimidated after that, but
understandable.
But no, those guys, that was a good team. They were a lot of fun to watch. And
yeah. Now,
Stanley. Wow.
Yeah.
Lolich. And, wow.
Now, I've got a question for you, and if this brings up any hard feelings or anything, you can tell me to F off, whatever. But I was kind of curious about my dad is from New York City, so he'd want me to ask this. But what was his real relationship like with George Steinbrenner, and what kept him coming back to the Yankees after being let go so many times?
The main word, well, first of all, he was a Yankee. I mean, and everybody, why? Mm-hmm. Here's it's real easy. He came up in 1950. I told you I have that right?
Yep. World
Series championship, 1950. 51, World Series champion. 52, game-winning catch of World Series championship. 53, MVP of World Series championship. Those were his first 4 years in the major leagues. He then had to serve in the Army in 54. Ironically, the Yankees don't go. Comes back in late in 55. They go, but lose to Brooklyn. They win it again in 56, and he gets traded in 57 after, sticking up for Sammy Davis Jr. at the Copacabana. So
he's kind of the good luck charm.
Why do you like New York so much? Because all he did was win World Series rings there.
Yeah.
And that's where his baseball heart was. As a player, once he got traded, his baseball heart was broken. He was never the same guy. You look, he just went a year here, there. He was a vagabond. And he was never the same. So he always wanted to be a Yankee. And that's where his heart was. As far as George goes, as much as at times he would get so frustrated at George, he felt like George meddled too much, shouldn't be as involved in the baseball operations as he was. George wanted to win as badly as my father did. And my dad respected that. And George's greatest quality was his loyalty. And my father felt like loyalty was maybe the number one ingredient to winning in baseball. If you work for George, he could be a tyrant. He could be so hard on you as an employee, but if something went wrong, if you lost a bunch of money and were about to lose your house, he might step up and pay for it for you. Then he'd chew your ass out for a little while and tell you what a terrible investor you were, and that, by God, if you would have been smarter, this wouldn't have happened. But he'd pick it up, take care of you. You did something really stupid and got a DWI, he might pick you up from the jail and chew you out the whole way home, but he'd pay for it and you'd still have your job. I mean, people like that don't grow on trees. They had big egos. They obviously butted heads, but my father always shot George straight, and he loved that because think how many yes men he was surrounded with. And he was obviously, first of all, Dad retired. Dad quit a couple times, but he also had a lifetime contract with the New York Yankees. A lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, nobody ever talks about that, but he was a Yankee at heart. It's where he always wanted to be. That's the only place he really wanted to be. Not that he didn't love his tenure in Detroit or Minnesota or Texas. He started wearing cowboy hats, after he left here. But his heart was always with that little pinstripes running down it.
That's awesome. I think we touched on this off camera here, but it was no secret that he had a volatile relationship with Reggie Jackson. How do you think he would handle today's player, like a Fernando Tatis type of personality?
I don't know his personality as well. I mean, he would try to push his buttons. Whether Fernando needs to be stroked, whether he needs to be nothing said to, or whether he needed to kick him in the, he'd do it. Now, it might cause him to lose his job, considering Fernando's probably going to be getting paid 6-7 times what he would have been. But he would have done what he thought he had to do for the team. If Reggie looked back at what happened, my father batted Reggie in the 6 hole, absolutely knowing he belonged in the 3 or 4 hole. Okay? But he did it to keep the team together. He did it to get the best out of Reggie because he knew when he did that, Reggie puffed up. would get mad, it would do even better. Try to stick it up Dad's butt, right?
Right.
And it worked. It made the other guys on the team happy, and it made Reggie play better. You know, that was my father's job. It wasn't to be their buddy. It wasn't to make things all fun for them. It was to win.
Yeah, that's important. It's to be able to motivate the guys or inspire them any way they need to be, and that whether that's you coddle them and support them, or give them compliments the whole time, or tell them they're not trying hard enough. And I think that's what Reggie needed. Was he needed that, you know, he needed to be pissed off a little bit in order to get that kind of competitive spirit out of him. I mean, Reggie was a hell of an athlete, but I mean, we all know I think his attitude could kind of be iffy. I think he needed to be pissed off to be the kind of competitor that he was. So I agree with you, you know?
And Reggie, like, one of the things I know my father, I mean, I heard him say it more than once about Reggie, was how good Reggie played in big games.
Yeah.
My father was that way as a player.
Yeah.
You know, my father was never as good as Reggie as a regular, but as a World Series player, my father was Hall of Fame caliber. You know, he was a 247 hitter lifetime in the regular season. He was a 333 hitter in the World Series with almost 100 at-bats. I mean, so he respected that bit of Reggie quite a lot. I mean, the thing he tried to do was get the most out of him every day. And that's his job.
Yeah, he probably understood the personality, and that's why he was able to push him the way he was, you know? I'm sure your dad got a kick out of it too, honestly.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think in the end of the day, he wanted to be everybody's friend. But you can't be sometimes.
Right.
And, you know, that was tough for him. I mean, think about Reggie's first move when he came to New York was to take a shot at Thurman Munson.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was a huge no-no.
The team captain. Yeah. Maybe the best player not in the Hall of Fame right now, Thurman Munson. And,
right.
Absolutely.
And literally the most respected player by his peers I ever saw.
Yep.
And so you take that shot, well, Dad has to do something to bring that team together.
Did you ever meet Thurman Munson? How old were you around that time?
Oh, yes, sir. 12 to, I was with Dad the day the accident happened.
Oh my God. Wow.
Here's a story for you. It was an off day. They were playing bad. Dad made him practice that morning. And Thurman had bought a plane. So that he could fly home and see his family. So he was flying the plane, and he was practicing touch-and-go landings that day, and plane crashed. The pilots got out. They weren't able to get Thurman out. But Dad and I were fishing on a pond in New Jersey, and some police officer with a bullhorn came to the dock and said, "Billy Martin, come to the dock. Billy Martin." Dad looked over at me and said, "What'd I do now, pard?" Yeah, that was something. He always said pard, like partner. That was short. That was something he and Mickey Mantle always called each other, pard. "What'd I do now, pard?" So we get back to the dock, and there were 2 police cars there. And they said, "You've got an emergency phone call waiting for you." And this was pre-cell phone days. So Dad jumped in car number 1. I helped his friend load up the boat and jumped in car number 2. And I think I was 15. Asked the, officer, "What's going on?" He said, "Your father's about to get a phone call from Diane Munson, Mrs. Thurman Munson." And Thurman just died in a plane crash, and they didn't want him to hear it on the radio. You know, he was really. The day before practice, or that morning actually, I was taking ground balls at second base, and Thurman said to my father, "I can't wait to see me and my son the way I see you and Billy Joe."
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Because his son was like 2 at the time, or 3, or it was a little bitty dude, and that night, my father was crushed. I mean, we were at his house, his condo, watching John Wayne movies. He cooked us steaks, and he said, "I got to go out." I said, "Dad, you can't go out tonight. You're going to get smoked, and something's going to happen. You can't, not tonight, not tonight, Thurman." He's like, "You're right. Yeah. I made him a drink that night. He didn't even touch it.
Wow.
You know,
oh my God.
He didn't even have a drink. We watched 2 or 3 John Wayne movies. He cried several times. That crushed him. He loved Thurman Munson.
Oh. That's Billy. I could talk to you all night, but I'll just keep you to 2 more questions, and then we'll let you go. And you've been amazing. So thank you for all your time and everything. First one, did you ever watch the did you watch the Bronx is Burning series? And if so, what
Absolutely.
What are your feelings about that? Like, how was there any like disparities in that show that just bothered you? They're like, that's way off. That was nothing like my dad, or that was nothing like that character. Like Mickey Rivers didn't do that, or anything.
Sure. Well, okay. I thought Turturro did an amazing job.
Yeah.
With my father's voice, his mannerisms. Okay, the ears were way out of line. that was a little goofy, right?
Sure.
Yeah. That was very historically accurate in a lot of ways. I mean, there's some little things I could pick at. One funny story. There's a scene where he's in the condo with my mother and I. The lady playing my mother, and it's really funny. I watched it with my mother, and during this scene, Turturro, my father yells back at my bedroom where I'm in there doing something as a 12-year-old, whatever. Yeah, I was 12. "Billy Joe, you want to go to the game with me?" And the lady playing my mother, "Shh, don't bother him, Billy. He's watching cartoons." My mother drops an F-bomb. "Are you effing kidding me? The whole world thinks I don't want my son to go to Game 6 with his father because he's watching Heckle and effing Jekyll." Yeah. And that was not accurate. I did go to Game 6 with my father that day. As a matter of fact, Willie Randolph's little brother and I drank champagne for the first time in our lives in the clubhouse, and both fell asleep under a table in the clubhouse. And the guys were looking for us and found us under the table, passed out from too much champagne at 12. But I think we had 2 glasses. But
that's enough for a 12-year-old. That'll do it for a 12-year-old.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, there were some things that they missed on that they weren't, but not much. It was pretty historically accurate. My parents actually got in a big argument that night, which they didn't put in there, which is kind of nice. Did they show that Frank Sinatra gave the gang his private room at Patsy's restaurant? I don't think they showed that in the movie either.
I don't think so.
I don't recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dad and a bunch of the guys went to Patsy's, and Frank Sinatra kind of had a private room upstairs, and he let the guys all have it. You can find it in the internet. There's a picture of Dad and Frank kind of shaking hands as they're like changing rooms because they were friends, and he did that. Dad and the Yankees. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think the whole Joe DiMaggio thing was in there. That has nothing to do with Sinatra, but I always thought that was humorous because I was never a big Joe D fan, but whatever. So, anyways, last question I got for you, Bill, is with Father's Day approaching, is there anything that you'd want to say about the kind of dad that he was, or anything that you'd like people to know about him?
His heart was as big as his grit. Pound for pound, I don't know that I've ever known a tougher man in my life. But I also saw him cry a lot. He cared so much about people, and he would go out of his way to make people's lives better. For years, when I went to New York, I'd get on an elevator or be in a parking lot, and the attendant to the parking lot or the elevator attendant would say, "Oh, are you Billy's son? Your father was so good to me. He always made me feel special." He went out of his way for the little man in life, and kind of went out of his way to do this to the big men in life a little bit too. But he never yelled at me my whole life. And trust me, I did plenty of things that needed to be yelled at. Learned a lot of them from Michigonians, but
you can blame us. It's okay.
He was. I always knew how much he loved me and had my back, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss him. I could never lie to him. He wasn't always there because his job wouldn't allow him to be, but he was always right here.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again, Mr. Martin, for all your time and the stories. These are some of the best stories I think we've ever had on the show. So we appreciate everything, and have a happy Father's Day. All right.
You guys do the same.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Billy.
Thanks, guys.